just kind of, like I went through it, and these top five are five movies that I really think are five of the best horror films. I'm not gonna say they're the five best, but they're five of the best. And this is the most recent one. Number five, The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods is, you mentioned it earlier, the concept of that movie and how it plays out. It is for anyone who doesn't know, it is a modern take on ritual sacrifice. And it does it in the most like spectacularly like monster filled way you can imagine. And I think the movie actually, they delayed the release of it until after Thor had released because they were going to play off Chris Hemsworth's star power because Chris Hemsworth is in the movie.
Yes, he is.
But they let you in, and the way it works is that these five teenagers are led to a cabin, and they all fit a different like a different like type of teenager that you see in every horror movie. There's the jock, there's the fool, there's the whore, and then there's the scholar, and then of course everyone's favorite ritual sacrifice, the virgin. And there's these five people, and basically what it is there's the group of people that every year they sacrifice five teenagers to appease the old gods. There's these old angry like Greek style like Titan gods that live underneath the earth, and if they don't sacrifice five people to them, they'll rise up and destroy Earth. And so it plays out in this way. It's one of the freshest and most original ideas I've ever seen in a horror film. And the way it plays out is just so great. They make the teenagers go into a basement and they choose, there's different items in the basement. And based off of whatever item they pick up, that's what's going to kill them. It's like each item represents a monster. And this group, this organization that puts the ritual sacrifice together, they have a whole like list of monsters that they have jailed up in cells. And at one point they show the like chalkboard of all the monsters they have. And if you pause the movie, they are some of the most outrageous monsters. There's one called the molesting tree, which is obviously a throwback to Evil Dead from 1981. There's like goblins, a merman, which one of the guys put together. The two guys that are the main that run this organization it's like Bradley Whitford, who played Eric and Billy Madison, and then Mr. Eric from Step Brothers. So they're like, it's very comedic, it's very funny, while at the same time being very, very scary. And it's a good idea. It was a great idea, this modern take on ritual sacrifice. And like you said, the fool is like the guy, he messes the whole thing up because he doesn't die in the turn that he's supposed to die in. And it just screws the whole thing up. And then they have to get the director of this organization to come down, and it's Sigourney Weaver. And, she's not, she'll show up. She actually shows up in another movie I'm about to mention, but it's just a good idea. You'd have to watch it. I don't necessarily want to spoil all of it. But at one point, if you pause the chalkboard scene with all the monsters that they have that they could release, there is one that's just called Kevin, and it's just called Kevin. And then like they're towards the end of the film, you get to see more of the monsters. It's not just the one that they choose. They choose a zombie redneck family called the Buckners because they pick up a journal in the basement, and it's the Buckners journal. And so these ritual sacrifice organization people release the Buckners. And it's kind of crazy. It's so over the top. It could have completely bombed and not worked at all, but the way the movie plays out, it works perfectly, and it creates this just one of the more perfect horror films I've ever seen. It really does.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that movie. Another one, geez, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that one just because I do remember it all, but it's just been quite some time since I've seen it. That one, it's the moment you said it, I'm like, how did I not add that on my list? Because it's so great. I'm glad you have it on yours. I totally agree.
It's a modern movie. Whenever people think of scary movies, like, it's not a movie I think that they're going to show on like AMC Scarefest, and it's not a movie they'll show on that.
Sure, yeah.
But because they show more of the classics, the Jasons and stuff like that. But no, it's just
Right.
it's 2012 is when it came out, and it's yeah, I highly recommend it. I saw it and was just blown away by it.
Love it.
That,
Love it.
that's funny you mentioned that. We actually watched it last week. That's what. Yeah, just the concept, the way they portray and everything unfolds in the movie, like the twists, the turns. I didn't expect any of that going into it, so it was hard to try to wrap my mind around it the first time when I saw it. And that's one of those movies that gets better, I think, every time you do see it, because it's less guesswork and more just enjoying what's happening. Like, oh, that's why they're doing that. Hilarious. Like, yeah, I absolutely love that movie. That's one of my all-time favorites for sure.
And it's like they try to like lead the kids along because there's like a certain order that the kids have to die in. And the virgin doesn't necessarily have to die. She just has to be the last one alive or the last one to die. And I mean, they even mentioned they're like when they find out there's like a sacrifice going on, one of them is like, well, how, you get a knife, you get a dagger and some ropes. Like, how hard is it, how hard can it be? And they have to explain to him, it's like, well, our culture has changed, there's more to it now, and it's like it's a 21st century take on ritual sacrifice using technology while at the same time creating a whole like category of just monsters, all sorts of monsters that they could unleash on these kids, and you get to see a lot of them, and it's very very, very it's funny, and it's also very scary, very bloody, and but it's just like I said, it's one of the more original ideas in a horror film I've seen in a long time. So